Here's how you can become a more badass public speaker, even if you feel terrified to set your foot on stage. Let's start with reorienting any fear you may have surrounding public speaking into a force that propels you forward. Here's how you do that. Versus being mired down and bottled up by feelings of fear to take the stage, accept them, acknowledge their existence, and run a visualization like this. First, we're gonna visualize the fear going by us as if it is on a conveyor belt at the supermarket. What does that do? That literally detaches the sentiment from you. You are quite literally above it, which is a perspective shift that you could use for nearly any emotion, by the way. That empowers you to determine what you are going to do with the feeling of fear about public speaking. And here are some suggestions for what you can do with that fear. First, let's look for the utility of the fear. What does the fear mean? What does the fear indicate to you? It indicates that you're about to do something that you really care about, something that matters to you, something with significance. I hope, because as I say this, I begin to feel like it's getting me going. It's getting me excited. It makes me want to do something that I have some fear around. So I hope it's creating the same effect for you. Tim Grover, in the book Relentless, has an incredible saying that he gives to some of the superstar athletes he coaches, guys like Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, and the GOAT, Michael Jordan, which is this. When they say to him, I have butterflies in my stomach, he says, you better get them all going in the same direction. So we're not killing the butterflies. We're not trying to get rid of them. We're just simply getting them to move in a way that serves us. You can do the same thing. One of the most overlooked ways to deliver incredible presentations and stage talks and performances is practice and preparation. I cannot tell you how many speakers I have coached with and met, people who have been paid up to $50,000 to speak on stage, and they prepare the talk like a few days before doing it. Because they're very well versed in their subject matter, they're still able to deliver incredibly good content, but so much opportunity to ascend and be an absolute fucking badass rock star is left behind because they simply did not give themselves the time and space to prepare. When you practice and prepare, you are able to catch, ooh, there's an awkward transition there. Or, ooh, I missed this point that I want to make. Let me add a visual cue on one of my slides so that I certainly do not miss that point when it is game time. Giving yourself that time and space to prepare requires that you begin to formulate your talk and presentation, obviously a bit more ahead of time. How do you prepare a talk? How do you prepare an amazing talk for a crowd that you want to help and dazzle on stage? Here's the first question I always ask myself. How do I want the audience to feel when I am done? There are a lot of potential answers for this. I do not have the answer for you, but I have the question for you to ask yourself. And so when you're able to sit back and think about it, maybe you want them to feel inspired. So you may tell some motivational stories. You may give some historical anecdotes. Maybe you want your audience to feel smarter. So maybe you'll teach them a few new strategies and tactics. Maybe you want your audience to feel like they're able to take action on something. So you'll give them do step 1, do step 2, do step 3. Maybe, and oftentimes, it'll be some sort of combination of all of these things, right? But I find that so many presenters begin to think of the content without first thinking about the outcome, and without that outcome being a feeling that you want the audience to have. Because at the end of the day, we only remember between 10 to 20% of a book we read, let alone an on-stage presentation where there are other people around you, there's other stimuli, there are distractions. So if you are not leading with, I want to inspire or move my audience in this way, if you're not leading with, I want to give them this feeling, then you are not setting yourself up for the most powerful delivery of your content possible. So lead with the feeling and build the structure of your presentation around that. A great presentation is often, it is often suggested that to have a great presentation, there should be one central theme. Now, I tend to take some issue with this because my brain tends to think of many things at once. So first, if you are feeling like, well, I want to talk about a few different things, you're okay. You're in like company. But what you can do is create an umbrella around them, right? So if I were to do a talk on dichotomous thinking and time horizons and the language that you use, what can an umbrella, right, that encompasses all of these things be? Well, if you are not appropriately thinking about thinking, and if you are not using the appropriate language in your head and out of your mouth, and if you are not able to consider long time horizons in your business, those are all things that are holding you back from jumping to that next revenue tier. So now I can put the umbrella, the 3 things that are holding you back from your next revenue tier. And if you want to get even more ninja with this, because everybody's got 3 steps, everybody's got the 4 things, can you give that umbrella, can you give that 3-part thing a name of some sort? You might want to Google what comes in threes. I'll tell you, that's a sentence I've Googled hundreds of times throughout my career as a copywriter. One of the ways humans learn best is through storytelling. So how can you incorporate stories for nearly every single point that you want to teach to your audience? Either stories from your own personal life, stories from your customers or your client's life or your business partners or your avatar's life. Or are there historical references that you may be able to glean? Did Genghis Khan do something, that was an embodiment of what you teach? Probably yes. Genghis Khan did a lot of shit. You could probably use Genghis Khan like if you were selling a foot powder, honestly, from stage. Looking for those historical anecdotes is going to make the meat and potatoes of your presentation so much more powerful. Box breathing and visualization before you take the stage have been incredibly helpful to me in my speaking career because I feel the butterflies, I get them all going in the same direction, and I do a simple close my eyes box breathing exercise for about 30 seconds. For about 30 seconds before I take the stage. A box breath is 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. That calms the nervous system, it opens up your vocal cords, and it prevents the likelihood of your voice shaking once you take the stage. Voice shaking is all about breath control. So if you take the stage and you notice your voice is shaking, this happens to me, I give myself a pause and take a deep breath. Pausing on stage is incredibly powerful. It gives you the opportunity to have the audience in the palm of your hand for a moment. But what beginning speakers will do is they do not want to pause, right? They feel incredibly nervous about pausing, and so they run through all of the content. They tend to speak much more quickly than they normally would, and that could leave the audience feeling like they're in a tornado or in a whirlwind. You rob yourself of the opportunity to let things sink in and have a moment of impact or have a moment of anticipation. So simply incorporating more pauses, very useful to you. It's also going to be very useful to you because if you do need a minute in your head to think of what you're going to say next, great, because you've just given yourself the pause. The audience does not know, right, that you're trying to remember what to say next. Hopefully you've practiced and prepared so you know what to say next, but it's common, it's totally understandable if you don't for a moment, but the audience doesn't know that. You can take it as a pregnant pause where you're letting the exclamation point of what you've just said hit the audience. The very first time I ever gave a talk, I had a friend and he said to me afterwards, Laura, if I had a poster board, I would have held it up in the back of the room. It would have said, slow down, because I spoke so quickly. I was nervous. I wanted to get through it. It was my first time and I was simply very, very nervous. Only the second time I took the stage, it was a huge transformation from where I had been before. So many people asked me if I spoke regularly. They were asking me for tips and tricks for their own talks. So what changed from 1 to 2? I quite simply asked myself this: how would I be on stage if this was my 100th talk? That put me into a brand new mindset. And I visualized it in my head for a minute. None of these things, you don't have to practice this for dozens and dozens and dozens of years necessarily, right? You can get the exponential gain from it if you are brave enough and willing to take these simple strategies that I'm giving you today. So I asked myself, how would I be if this was my 100th talk? Well, I would look people in the audience in the eye, right? I would ask them to participate by raising their hands or by saying, hell yeah. I would move gracefully from one end of the stage to the other. I would use pregnant pauses. I would speak more slowly, right? I would be able to feel out and go with the flow of the room. So if I asked, like, can you guys say yes? And it was sort of a weak yes, maybe I would make a joke about them not having coffee yet, right? Whatever it may be. You could do that visualization in a minute. And that is what I did. I was able to embody more of it since I had done the practice and put conscious thought on, well, here are the things that I would do. And I was able to level up my speaking skills hugely, exponentially, and in like 2 minutes of time. What would it look like if this was my 100th time, by the way? Is a useful prompt you can use for nearly anything you want to exponentially improve at. So remember that. I mentioned visualization as a useful tool to help you improve at public speaking. So let's put some thought and attention onto this. There are different ways you can visualize situations, outcomes, and things that you want to achieve in your life, quite literally by applying different perspectives to them. So I would encourage you to visualize yourself speaking through the first person. So that would look like you see the audience in front of you, you see their wide-eyed, starstruck responses, you see them reacting to you, you see them nodding, you see them laughing, whatever it may be. Another type of visualization I recommend you try is a third person visualization. So that would be you looking at yourself on the stage, either in parallel, perhaps from above, perhaps from below as an audience participant, from all angles. This is just going to give you more robust opportunities for embodiment when you do step out onto the stage. And again, only has to take a minute or two of your time.